I think you all know that there's a topic a lot of people are talking about right now, and it is changing the world in a lot of ways, including higher education. And that's AI, right? AI will absolutely change the way that we work, the way that we learn, and the way that we teach. And so I really want our students to know that at OSU, we put this at the forefront of their education because it's going to be the most important skill when they're trying to get a job. Here I have a photo of Jensen Huang. He is the founder and CEO of NVIDIA, one of the largest AI companies in the world, and he's actually an OSU grad. And so he was on campus this spring, back in April, and he had this quote: "There's no question that artificial intelligence is the single most valuable resource that humanity knows. Its impact on every industry can be very profound. This is the best of times to go to school, and I'm glad that you guys have chosen to come to Oregon State University, which is at the epicenter of some of the most important areas of scientific breakthroughs." And I think that's really powerful because what he's talking about there is how this is going to shape a student's career, how it's going to shape their experience as a student, and how their professors need to be familiar with the tools to be able to teach students to be ready for this new reality. Because what AI changes is that it's not just about computer science anymore. We always think of computer science majors being able to write code, be able to create programs, and that helps them use technology to do work, right? The program can automatically run and do work. But the power of AI is we're taking that skill set and we're giving it to everyone. As long as you know how to ask the right questions, how to work with AI, you're going to be able to use that skill set to enhance whatever you do. And I've got a couple examples here. This could be running a business. If you want to be more efficient, you're going to need to incorporate AI into some of your processes to either understand your consumers, to be able to be more efficient. If you're doing research as a scientist, there's a lot of ways that our professors are already using AI. And one of the most powerful comments from the symposium we had on AI a few months ago was researchers talking about how this is going to accelerate the pace of research. Because if anyone has done their PhD or knows someone who has, you spend about a year doing background work. This is where you have to do a lit review to understand exactly where your field is at and what your area of focus, like what has been published already about your area of focus. This is very time consuming, and it's the least interesting part of the research. The most interesting part being actually doing the research. And we're now finding that you can use AI to actually summate that lit review in a matter of minutes rather than taking an entire year. This is going to accelerate the pace we're able to do research. Also, I think we're going to see AI used for humanitarian good, for increasing quality of life for people, for allowing our artists and our social science students to advance their careers, and even in our personal lives, whether it's taking the burden off some of the menial tasks that we do in our daily lives. So this is going to affect everyone, and we want to make sure at OSU that this is the core of your degree because it's going to be the core of life in a very, very short time. Now, let me take a step back and introduce OSU as a university. I just kind of talked about how we lead in technology. It's something we're known for, is taking technology and applying it into your field of study. But there's a few other things. And the way I like to introduce OSU is I tell students that every university is like a person, and it has its own personality, its own values, its own things that it really believes in. And so I want to introduce OSU's personality, and I think that helps students realize, is this a good match for me? Because just like a person, you want to make sure that your friends, that the people you're in relationships with, that you get along with, that you agree with them on certain things. So at OSU, we're a community. And the great thing about US universities is when you join a university, you're part of that community for life. It's not just when you're a student there. After you graduate, you're part of the alumni community. And I'm lucky enough to be an OSU alumni myself. And so I felt the power of this. My lead professor in my graduate program still communicates with us, gets us together on campus, sends jobs out. He's always looking out for his graduates. And then I get to meet alumni all around the world. And so I've gotten to go to alumni events in Bangkok and Jakarta and Shanghai. and soul and get to see other alumni build out my professional network and benefit from their experiences. In fact, our international alumni help us offer internships, so internships and jobs for new grads. This really enhances a student's ability to get the most out of their studies and then jump right into their career. We're also a community in the sense of where we live and study. And so I'm going to talk a little bit more about Corvallis, Oregon, where the university is located. But we're always around each other because we're a college town. So this is a smaller city. It means that you're constantly surrounded by your peers and your professors and the resources that campus has to offer. And this is a huge benefit. But we also really believe in meaningful work, finding purpose with what we do. And we like students that are passionate, that have an idea or want to learn more about a field, that want to go and make an impact. And of course, by impact, we want that to be their personal success in that field. But we also want to make sure that they're thinking about the impact they have on the community around them, on the environment around them. And this is central to an OSU degree. We have amazing world-class facilities to empower students to be able to do this. And so when you have a student who's interested in marine biology, when you have a student who's interested in construction materials, renewable construction materials, we're going to be able to provide them with experiences that they're not going to be able to get in other places. And that's really about empowering students to make sure that they're successful. And so it's a big move for an international student to choose to study abroad. And a lot of the times they're going to a place that they've never been before. And that means leaving behind your friends, your family, the food you're used to, the weather you're used to, the language that you're used to speaking, and going to a new place. And that can be really scary. And so we're going to assist in the entire process from the moment that they apply through their graduation to make sure that they're going to be successful. That includes things like priority registration to get them into the right classes, visa support. So if they have to do an interview for their visa, we're going to have a team that's going to meet with them and help them make sure they have the right paperwork and guide them in what they can expect in that interview. We have a pre-arrival team that is going to talk to them many times before they arrive on campus to make sure that they're doing the activities they can do from their home, that they're getting prepared for their travel, and then we'll pick them up at the airport, get them onto campus, and get them moved in. And then that support doesn't stop. And so in their first year, that is the time when students have the hardest time because they're adjusting to so many new things, a new education system, a new lifestyle, new social group. That's where we provide extra support in making sure that they have additional tutoring, that they have advisors that are working with them and monitoring their progress through their classes so that if they are struggling or if they run into an issue, we can address it before they have any serious problems like failing a class. And then really the whole purpose of a state university in the US is job preparation. And we take this incredibly seriously. We want to make sure that our students are getting the exact skill set and the technical expertise to be able to jump right into their career. And we do that by giving them hands-on and experiential learning opportunities. And this allows them to try their hand at the field that they're studying so they can have practical examples when they're doing that interview. And what I love is I get to talk to, like I said, a lot of alumni, and I'll ask them like, well, tell me about your experience. And they'll say, well, you know what? I really got to know my professor. He reached out to companies and told them when I was graduating I got a job like that, or that I built up my social network while on campus, and when I was able to go back to my home country, I was able to find that employer that already worked with OSU or already knew of OSU, and so they hired me. It's just great to hear those kind of opportunities. So what kind of programs do we have? We're a big state university, so we have just about everything. There's over 200 different majors, but what OSU excels in and what is at the core of every program that we have is use of technology, right? And so that's what we put front and center. So if our students are studying social sciences, health sciences, life sciences, earth sciences, they're going to be understanding and engaging in research. They're going to be thinking about the way that technology is changing their field. So for example, we've got a great business analytics program in our business department. And I've talked to students in that program and they say, well, I'm a little bit worried because when I started this field, it seemed to be exploding. It was growing so fast. That's what employers wanted. But now I'm worried by the time I graduate, all analytics is going to be done by AI. And I've gotten to talk to professors about this, and what they say is absolutely analytics is going to be done by AI, but it still needs to have a human at the center of it. So if you graduate with a business analytics degree and you're not using AI, yeah, it's going to be hard to find a job. But if you can understand and harness that technology, you'll be the most valuable employee at the company. We also have other great business programs. And once again, so our business analytics program is STEM designated. So there's that at the undergraduate and the graduate option. But we also have, we have accountancy, we have finance, business administration, marketing, interior design. So a lot of opportunities for students who are looking for a business degree. Our largest department, though, is engineering. And this is probably what we're most well known for. We have about 18 different engineering programs. That's where we include computer science and electrical engineering, biomechanical engineering. And these are wonderful programs that are doing groundbreaking work. In fact, I'll mention this a little bit later, but our computer science program is the largest in the US, which means we have more computer science graduates than any other university in the US. So the three things that I like to talk to students about is what makes a university different. The first is the return on the investment, because no matter where a student chooses to study, it's a huge investment. It's a financial investment, but it's also an investment of their time and their life, right? They're going to go to this place and live there for 2, 3, 4 years, and that's going to be a big part of who they are and their personal growth. But we also want to make sure that that investment is taken very seriously at the university and that it's paid back to them. And at OSU, like I said, we're so career focused. We're going to make sure that we are giving our students the best degree possible and the best chance to be able to pursue their career. Another thing that differentiates a university is the location. And so, the US is a huge country. We've got a lot of different cultures, a lot of different kind of areas in the US with different climates, different weather, different industries. And so the location you actually study in actually changes the opportunities that you'll get, including where the campus is located. And then finally, one unique thing about the US is that we get billions of dollars in funding for research every single year. And this will fundamentally change campuses. It means we're able to install facilities on campus that no other university has. And this provides unique opportunities for students to be able to get firsthand experience engaging with those facilities. So I'm going to go into each of these in a little bit more detail. But the first thing I want to talk about is return on investment, because like I said, we're very serious about this. And I think the strongest statistic we have is that OSU graduates earn on average $20,000 more than the average US graduate. That's because they're getting into jobs faster, they're getting into higher paid positions faster, and they're advancing through their career faster. And that is directly tied to that technical experience that they're getting from their degree. Make an entire career. Most of us work about 40 or 45 years. That 20,000 turns into about $850,000 to $900,000 in an additional lifetime earning. So that's a huge difference. Many of you will be familiar with OPT, and this is a huge opportunity for a return on investment. OPT gives students the chance to stay in the US and work for 1 to 3 years after they graduate. The thing is, though, they've got to get a job. And no matter what a university says, that's on the student. We will prepare the student for that experience, but they're going to be the one that has to sit in that interview seat and actually get the job. So we make sure that all of our students are ready for this opportunity. That's why we have about 550 students currently on OPT. And actually our placement for South Asian students, so this would be Nepal, India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, is around 90%. That's a phenomenal statistic. And it shows the hard work of our students, but also the opportunities that they're getting on campus. So how do we get these high statistics? It's because we start from the very first day they're on campus. Our Career Center does an awesome job of mapping out exactly what students should be doing through every step of their educational journey. There are things that you need to do your first year. There's things that you need to think about your first year, and there's also things that you need to decide. And so we make sure that students are engaging in all three of those steps at every stage of their education. Our advisors will work one-on-one with students and help them prepare for that OPT. This means making sure that they understand the process, the paperwork, the different kinds of regulations that OPT entails. But it also means working with businesses. And this is a great way to increase the number of spots that we have, is that we talk to businesses directly. Because your big companies, Intel, Microsoft, they are very comfortable hiring international students. They do it all the time. That's not an issue for them. But there are many startup or smaller companies that have never hired an international graduate. They aren't sure what the regulations are or what paperwork is required. And so our advisors will actually work with those companies as well to make them confident to hire international students. And then we've got a fantastic opportunity for students in computer science and engineering at the undergraduate level, where they can do a full year of CPT as a paid internship during their program, and then they'll still get the 3 years of OPT after, meaning that an undergraduate student could get a full 4 years of paid work experience on their student visa. So a little introduction to our location. If you haven't been to the US before, Oregon is right in the middle of the West Coast. So you have California with cities like LA and San Francisco. You have Oregon with our capital city, Portland, and then the state of Washington with Seattle. And this is a special place in the US. You can see from the video and the photo, it's a beautiful place. A lot of natural areas, rivers, lakes, oceans, mountains, and it's got just a great opportunity to be able to get out and engage in a healthy lifestyle. But there's a couple other things that make the West Coast, so Oregon, Washington, California, really unique. One of those is the people. If you've been on the East Coast, if you've been to New York City or Boston, you know that people dress very formally. They're going to be in suits and ties, and they're very serious. On the West Coast, we're a little bit more relaxed. If you think of your big tech companies and their CEOs like Zuckerberg, they're not going to be dressed in a suit. Typically, they're wearing a hoodie or sneakers or something like that. That's because we're just more relaxed and we're more open on the West Coast. And this helps students because when they arrive, they can feel that openness. People smile, people wave, people are kind to each other. We're interested in each other. And that makes a big difference when you're moving to a new place. But the other thing that's really unique about the West Coast is the way that we think and the way that we learn. So if you think of every major tech company that has changed either business or changed technology, most of them were founded on the West Coast. So I always joke when I pull up this slide because I feel like every university says, hey, look, we work with NVIDIA, we work with Amazon, we work with Intel. And that's true. These are big global national company or international companies that have offices all around the US and around the world. But what is unique is that all of these companies founded on the West Coast between San Francisco and Seattle. And it's not a coincidence. It's because the way that we think out here is different. We love to take a problem, break it down, and then build it back and see if we can do it better. That's why the major companies that have changed the world with innovation through technology have been based out here. Think about, when the internet came online, you had companies that, like Amazon, that said, hey, I think this would be really good for selling books. You had companies like eBay, which said, oh, I think we can process money in a different way now that we have this new system. Those companies absolutely changed the world. And the next round of companies. So if you think of all the major players in AI right now, that's going to be your Google, Microsoft, Meta, and NVIDIA. Those companies are all based on the West Coast. So we've been part of that industry for the last 50 years, meaning that we have deep relationships with these companies. It's not like, yeah, we have a few students do an internship at Intel. We actually have hundreds of or thousands of our former students embedded in that company. The former founder or the former head of Intel in India was an OSU student. So we have these deep relational ties to these companies that really change the experiences and the opportunities. I just love to hear stories from alumni when they get a job at these companies. They say, well, I was really nervous. I really wanted to work at Intel. It was my dream job. I started interviewing and I found out someone from the panel was actually from OSU as well. And so those are the kind of connections that really matter to a student. But let me introduce you to campus. And so hopefully you can see this video. It's probably a little bit choppy, but I wanted to really give you a feel of what campus looks like. And as you can see, it's the quintessential American campus, right? Very comprehensive, 400 acres, 200 buildings, everything from dorms and residence halls to dining facilities, research facilities, academic buildings, recreation facilities, athletic stadiums. It's got it all. But what you'll also notice is that it's a small town. It's a small city. And so the entire population of the city is around 60,000. And then you have about 30,000 students on top of that. And I think this is a perfect place to study. And there's a couple of reasons. One is when you're in the US, one of the most valuable things you can do is build up your professional network. That's because if you want those jobs, that's a lot of times where your job comes from. If you get on LinkedIn and just start applying for random jobs, you can submit hundreds of applications and only get a couple callbacks. But if you have a professor or a fellow employee talk to the boss and say, hey, this is a good candidate, that's going to increase your chances of getting that job exponentially. And so when you're in a small city, it doesn't matter where you are, you're never more than 15 minutes away from every one of your colleagues, from all of your professors and all of the facilities on campus, meaning that it's a very engaged population. You're constantly getting to know people, and that is very, very valuable. I was talking about this earlier, but I've lived in Ho Chi Minh. I've gotten to be, in Kathmandu and in Delhi, and it takes a lot of time to go across town. So if I'm studying in a huge city, I'm not going to fight traffic to go to campus multiple times a day. I'm going to go there for my classes, and then I'm going to retreat to my corner of the city. But when you're in a place like this, everything's accessible, meaning that you can come back to campus to watch those athletic games, to spend more time doing research, to meet with your professor. And that really changes the experience that you get. You can also see at the top there that we are ranked the safest campus by ADT Security. It's safe because it's a small town, but it's also safe because the community really cares about each other. And so we come together and make sure that everyone feels safe and comfortable. It's also a cheaper place to live than a big city. Some of the most expensive cities in the US are those on both the West Coast and the East Coast. So New York, Boston, Seattle, San Francisco, those are very expensive places to live. But in Corvallis, there's free public transportation, meaning that students can get around the city for free. And in Oregon, there's no sales tax. So that cuts the cost of everything down by about 8 to 10%. So I've been talking a lot about how the amazing outcomes of our students, and it's by design because we want to make sure that those students are getting those experiences that they can talk about and use in their job search. And so some of those experiences are internships or off-campus classes, and then through doing research. And so every program at OSU is eligible for an internship, and so you can build that into your academic program. As I mentioned earlier, we have one that is called MECOP, which is Multiple Engineering Cooperative Program. So this is for engineers, computer scientists, and actually we also have marketing and finance that do, or students that do as well. And this program allows students to do a paid 6-month-long internship in their third year, and then a second paid 6-month-long internship in their fourth year. So by the time they graduate, they'll have that full year of work experience. Plus, they're getting paid this as starting engineers, so they're making $40,000 to $50,000 during that experience. We also have a lot of campuses or classes off campus, and this is because many of you know some work doesn't happen in an office or a classroom. And so to really experience what that work looks like, you actually need to leave the classroom. And that's why if you're studying any kind of earth science or environmental science or biology or fisheries, you might have your class on the Oregon coast at our research campus. You might have your class in our research forest that's adjacent to campus. And so we're getting students into the environment where the work is done. And then I'll talk a little bit more about research, but research can be a really powerful tool to allow students to get professional experience. And if they're looking at advancing their academic career, there's nothing better than doing research at the undergraduate level. So let me give you some examples of what that practical experience looks like. So in our business programs, and this is for all undergraduate students in business, every single one of them gets to start and run their own business in their very first year. So the university will provide them startup funds, $800, $1,000, and then they, with a small group of other students, actually create a business. And so they're drafting their business plan, they're designing the logo and the branding, that they're trademarking that branding, and then they're actually sourcing or building their service or their material and doing the point of sale. So they get to experience every step of what it's like to start and run a business in their very first year. This helps them connect with the curriculum, so they're understanding what they're learning about a little bit better, but it's also a great booster to help them get more experiences in the future. For example, if I'm competing for an internship and I can talk about the time I start and ran my first business as a sophomore, as an 18-year-old, a 19-year-old, that's really going to give me a leg up in getting that internship. Engineering, I kind of talked about the undergraduate opportunity with the paid internship, but we have awesome graduate engineering programs too. Most of them can be done in about a year and a half, so a year and 3 months to a year and 6 months. And the average salary for those graduates is around $100,000, meaning that they're getting many times over what they invest in their degree if they take advantage of the 3 years of OPT. And so great opportunity for any students who are looking for civil engineering, electrical engineering, environmental engineering, bioengineering. And then finally, I wanted to talk about computer science because this happens to not only be our most popular program, but just about the most popular program in the entire US. But almost every university has a department of computer science now. That's just the way things are. But I really caution students because some of those departments are different than others. Some of them are better, some of them are just not as robust. And so at OSU, as I mentioned, we are the largest program in the entire US. And why large means good is it means that there's more specialization. So if you go to a university with a small computer science program, they might have 12 professors and you might take one class from each of them and that's your degree. At OSU, we have over 200 professors, meaning that if you're taking a course in cybersecurity, that professor's entire professional background is going to be in cybersecurity, and you're going to get the skill set from them that you really need to be competitive in the workforce. We also, because of our legacy, we have great investment in our campus from those big tech companies. So for example, Intel has built networking labs on our campus that they work on projects with us. Hewlett-Packard is another one. They have a research campus that's adjacent to our campus. And we just started a collaboration where we're looking at microchips and how to reduce the overall heat that they produce in those facilities. And then finally, and I think I talk about this in a future slide, but we've got a really exciting new partnership with NVIDIA. And so what this shows is that these big companies are investing their money into OSU because they know that OSU is going to help them advance their business in the future. And then, as I mentioned, we've been doing computer science for about 50 years now. So, this is back when computers were half the size of the room that I'm in, and we were just getting started on understanding their capability. And so that legacy means that OSU has been involved in the development of computers and computer science since almost its birth. The computer mouse was actually invented by an OSU graduate. The concept of Windows, advancements in microchips, all developed here at OSU. And then finally, because we have the largest graduating population of computer scientists, it means we have the largest alumni network. So we have more graduates working for all of those companies that I mentioned earlier. This will help students get a foot in the door. It helps build up those internship opportunities that our students are able to engage in. And it really enhances the overall reputation of an OSU degree. These companies know OSU. They have OSU employees. They have OSU in their leadership. And that's going to help our students get jobs. Another way that students can really build up their experience is through activities that happen outside of the classroom. And this is definitely a big part of a US education. And so, of course, we have a lot of social activities. So students like sports. If they like video games, dancing, music, arts, they can join those clubs for social purposes. But there's a lot of clubs at OSU that give students professional experiences. So for example, here in the top photo, you can see our robotics team. This is a team that anyone can join. You don't even need to be studying robotics. And you can join a work team. And these work teams work on different projects and then go compete at national and international competitions. And so this photo is the Lunar Rover team. They designed and built a robot that could be used on Mars or on the moon. And then they competed at an international competition put on in Canada, and they won first place. And so that's absolutely going to stand out on their resume. And the great thing is, like I said, this isn't just computer scientists or electrical engineers, it's mechanical engineers. We also have business students, finance staff that help with the funding of the projects and the business aspects of competing in national and international competitions. So there's a lot of opportunities out there for students to engage and get those professional experiences that boost their resume. And then I mentioned research, and this is another core tenet of what it means to be an OSU student, because we want everyone to understand research. And the world has been changing so rapidly. We have many times more data than we have in the past, meaning that we can understand, if we're in business, we can understand our customers a lot more. We can get much more feedback on our products. We can look at supply chains in a very different way. And so no matter what major you're going into, we want students to understand the value of good research, how to interpret research to be able to use for your purpose, and then how to understand what is good research that can be actionable and what is maybe research that we shouldn't make decisions based on. At Oregon State, we get $500 million, so almost $500 million a year to conduct research. And that is a ton of money, and it absolutely transforms the experience that students get. So this helps us attract top professors, meaning that even if students aren't doing research themselves, they're working with faculty who are on the cutting edge of their field. It also makes sure that there's a lot of opportunities for students to engage and do research. All of our research teams have undergraduate students on them, meaning if a student wants to do research at the undergraduate level, they can walk into our Office of Undergraduate Research, get connected with a project, or start their own research project. Okay, this is the big NVIDIA investment that I was mentioning earlier. So Jensen Huang, when he was on campus, he was there for a symposium on AI in learning, but he was also there to break ground on a brand new $200 million innovation center. And this center is focused on new emerging technology. And so it will house one of the most powerful computers in the entire world. I think it's the 5th most powerful computer at a higher education institute in the world. And it'll host its own AI system, meaning that we will have all the power of an AI system just for our purposes, just for our students to learn, our teachers to instruct, and for our instructors to do research. And so this is going to fundamentally change everyone's degree at OSU with that ability. It's also going to house a robotics testing area where we're able to test aerial, terrestrial, and underwater robots, augmented reality, a lot of those emerging technologies that you've been hearing about in the news. This is going to be a world-leading facility, and so we're really excited about it. But more than that, like I said, we really focus on innovation, and part of innovating is taking care of our planet and making sure that we're thinking about the impacts of our lives and our work on the environment. And so we're really proud that we are the 3rd best university for fighting climate change. And then one thing that we have really invested in is a lot of these fields that we have that we focus on, engineering, sciences, they've been male dominated. And so we've made an effort to make sure that we have more women faculty than almost any other university in the entire US. I think it's only Stanford that has more than us. And that's because we want women going into these fields to have mentorship. We want them to have people who have understood what it's like to go into a male-dominated field so we can change the dynamics there. And so it's really exciting for our young women who are excited to go into a STEM-designated field. Just a quick example of a world-changing technology that is being developed at OSU, and this is just on the smallest scale. You know, sometimes we think that you need to, develop a brand new, like a system to really make an impact. But some of our students were understanding that a lot of places, if you build a, something that measures the environmental impact of pollution, and it costs 1 million, 2 million to produce. It's not very mobile. That's going to be limited in its applicability. And so this is a really cool project that we use basic materials to design a silicone bracelet. Many of you have probably seen these in the past for different causes, but this bracelet is particular where anyone could wear it, and then with a very cheap and easy analysis, we can understand what kind of chemicals they've been exposed to. Imagine if everyone in the city did this. This would help us map out where pollution is happening and then be able to track down its source. And it's a very accessible technology, meaning that it doesn't cost much to implement. So this is the kind of thing that we want our students to be involved in, thinking about, and engaging in. So another big development that we just started at OSU, and I'm super excited about this because many of our students, one thing they want to experience when they study in the US is a on-campus job. This is a great opportunity to help them lower the cost of their education to make it more affordable, but it's also a great opportunity because they're getting that employment experience in the US. And I guarantee all their American counterpoints are doing some kind of part-time work. And so when they apply for a job, if they haven't had any work experience, that's going to make them less competitive. And so we have the Jumpstart program, and this allows students to engage in getting on-campus employment before they even arrive. So as soon as they get an offer for OSU, we'll ask them, are you interested in getting an on-campus job? If they say yes, we'll say, great, go ahead and confirm your offer. Once you're confirmed, we'll work with you both in groups and one-on-one to first train you on the OSU system to apply for jobs, give you practical advice on cover letters and interviewing tips and things like that. And then we'll help you set up interviews with on-campus employers, meaning I can get a job before I even arrive on campus. Once you get to campus, we have an orientation, and then we'll take all those students we'll take them to the nearest Social Security office where they can get their card so that they can begin that employment immediately. So this is a huge opportunity. Students who engage in this during the academic year can make between $12,000 and $16,000 per year. If they do it over the summer term as well, you're looking at about $20,000. So it can have a huge financial impact on their ability to afford an education as well. And with that, I wanted to kind of jump into cost and pricing, because I know that many students, the first question and the last question will be about scholarships and affordability. And so I've got an example of a total program cost from Nepal here. And what you can see is that the university sticker price is around $39,000. So a lot of students might see that and think, okay, I don't think I can afford to go to OSU. That's too much. I understand that, but all of our students from Nepal are guaranteed $16,000 per year. They'll get this with their offer, and they can't lose it. It's not tied to GPA. This is a guaranteed $16,000 per year. If those students then also do that Jumpstart program I just talked about and get that on-campus job, their total cost for the four-year degree is under $30,000 for tuition and fees. And so that can show how affordable OSU can be. And it's not just Nepal that we have this award for. We have it based on residency. So no matter where a student lives, there's a regional award for them. So if they're in India, they're getting about $10,000 per year plus a $6,000 one-time scholarship. Vietnam, it's 10,000 as well. Africa, it's about 12,000 per year. So there's different price points depending on where a student is coming from. And I'd be happy to talk through all of those with you individually later, but there's a lot of opportunities. So if a student is willing to put in a little bit of work, they're able to really capitalize on these financial incentives. Okay, with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'd love to get to your questions. Okay, so the first question is about scholarships. So we got to talk a little bit about that. Those two opportunities, the regional awards that we have, and then the Jumpstart Employment Program, those are the largest scholarships that we offer. But there are smaller scholarships that a student can apply for as well. And so once a student has an offer, they have access to our scholarship database, and they can look through to see if there's any other scholarships that they want to apply for. And that could mean that they might have additional requirements like an essay or an interview or something like that. But the database actually will filter using their profile and show which ones they could actually apply for. GPA and English. So the great thing about our programs, most of our programs have benchmark admissions, meaning as long as a student meets those admissions, then they're able to go direct, they're able to get an offer. It's not necessarily competitive entry. So at the undergraduate level, we're just looking at English language and GPA. If a student has a 3.0 GPA or higher, they can go directly into our program. If they're lower than that, 2.5 to 3.0, they can go into a pathway. As far as English language, we can meet a student where they're at. So if they have a very low English language score, no problem, we'll put them in a language intensive course. If they have a medium level of English, we'll provide English support as they do their academic program. And if they're high enough, 70 TOEFL or 6.0 IELTS, they can go directly into their program without that English language support. There's a question about paying tuition before the visa. So we do have a confirmation deposit. And the reason we set this up is when a student says they want to confirm, we want to start holding class spots for them because classes can fill up. And so we ask that they pay a deposit. It varies depending on where you're at. Most students pay between $800 and $2,000 to confirm. And once they do that, we send the I-20 so they can get that visa appointment. They don't have to pay the full tuition. That deposit is 100% refundable on if the student is rejected from the visa. So we'll completely refund that deposit amount. Okay.
There is a couple of questions on chat.
Yeah, I was gonna move over to that. Let's see. Plant science in masters. So we do have so we actually have our agriculture department, which covers everything from like botany to fisheries to food science and technology, is actually top 30 in the world. So it's one of the best programs because of the research that we do. And there are a lot of opportunities there. I'm going to steer you to a website. Many of these are at the graduate level are competitive entry. I just mentioned that some of our programs are benchmark. Competitive entry means that there's a set deadline, and once that deadline passes, the department assesses all the applications and they fill the spots they have. And so this website will actually show you what those deadlines are, what the requirements are, if there's any supplemental tests for all of our master's programs, including programs like botany. Okay.
There is another
there
is another question on safety issue. Can you tell a little bit about Cornell? That's a beautiful place.
Yeah. So Corvallis is like I mentioned, we are ranked the safest campus. It's a very safe community, and we do a couple things to enhance this. One thing is we have both campus security and a police force on campus dedicated to our campus in case anything happens. Most of the time, they're helping students who lock themselves out of their rooms or get a flat tire when they're driving, but they're available in case anything would happen. Another thing is we just want to make sure that all our students are comfortable all the time. And so we have something we call Safe Ride. And this is a service where anyone, when it gets dark, if they need to go anywhere in the city or to a neighboring city, they just call a number and the university Safe Ride van will come pick them up and take them to their destination free of charge. And so once again, this is just making sure that people are feeling comfortable and feeling safe. And so we know the most important thing for parents is that their children are taken care of. And we take that very, very seriously. Now, is it perfect? No, no place is. But what you'll also find, as I mentioned earlier, is that Corvallis is a community that takes care of each other. And I've got a great example. This was a student I was talking with about a year ago, and he was a Muslim student traveling to the U.S. for the first time. And he was really nervous because he had, watched the news. He had heard that, there's discrimination in the U.S. and things like that. And so when he got here, and he was studying academic English. So when he got here, he was a little bit nervous. During his first week, he went to the grocery store, was trying to purchase some groceries, forgot to tell his bank that he was traveling internationally, so his bank card didn't work. The person behind him in line actually went up and said, "Oh, I'll buy your groceries for you." And so he got her email so that he could contact her and pay her back. And then they just started meeting for coffee every week. And that's the kind of community that students are joining. It's a place, like I said, where people are curious and excited that you're there, that they're welcome to you being who you are, and that's both your personality, your religion, your ethnic background. We're excited about that. We love the diversity, and so I think it's a place where students will not only feel safe, but they'll feel comfortable and engaged in their community. It's a little bit different for each professor. Each professor gets the academic freedom to kind of design their course. And what I'll say is, yes, a student will take some tests, but most of our professors try to find ways to engage in practical learning and practical examination, because a practical exam can be a lot more informative on how well you've mastered the subject. So this might mean instead of a test, you're actually working on a term-long project with a group. And so, like I said, there are tests. Students will have tests throughout their academic career, but for the most part, a lot of what they're going to be doing is building those experiences. Because I'll tell you this, I've worked for a long time, and my boss has never given me a test. They always give me projects, and they say, "Hey, work with the team, figure this out, come up with a solution," right? That's what we want to engage our students in, because that's what real life is like. We've also got a question about transferring. So absolutely, the US is a very flexible system to transfer into, meaning that any college level, university level credits that they have, no matter where they've taken them, will be assessed and evaluated and applied to their degree. Now, in the US, you need two things to graduate. You need a set number of credits plus all the right courses. And so those credits will absolutely count towards their credit, their maximum credits, but they'll still have to take all of the correct courses. So if they've studied for 2 or 3 years in another country, it's going to be harder to graduate. Or it's unlikely that they'd only take 1 year to graduate. They're probably going to have to make sure that they get all those required courses. Age criteria. So we have a age criteria of 16. So 16 at the start of your program. And so we need to see that you've graduated high school, that you have some kind of certificate of graduation, and then be at least 16 when you're starting your program at OSU. Do we need a third-party transcript evaluation? No. As long as they have been translated into English, you can send them to our admissions team, and our admissions team will do its own evaluation. Gap. In the US, we really don't look at this. I know that like in Australia they do, but what we'll ask is students to explain kind of what they've done during the gap. And the only reason is we want to make sure that we know all about their academic background, and we're assessing all of their academic background. So they did their undergrad, it's been 6 or 7 years, they want to go back and get a master's. We're just going to say, "Hey, tell us what you did for those 6 and 7 years. Oh, you worked? Great. You're it. No problem." So gap shouldn't be an issue at OSU. So kind of clarifying about the exams, the projects. So that'll vary by class. Some classes actually will have a final exam, but a lot of them will have final projects. And this varies on what subject you're taking, what level you're taking it, and then who your professor is. So for example, when I was studying, one of my projects was a group lit review where we spent the entire term researching an area. I studied public health, so we were researching an area of public health, and we collaborated, put that together, and then the exam was to come in, hand it to the professor, and then walk out the door, right? So that's an example of like a project that we worked on the entire term. My chemistry class had exams. So that was something where it wasn't there was the lab that actually had the practical experience, but the recitation actually had a physical exam that I had to fill out. So it varies on what class you're taking.
Can you repeat one more time, confirmation of deposit and how much does the student have to pay?
Yes. So basically for most of our programs, it's between 800 and 2000. And so if and this will be stated in the offer letter. So when a student gets an offer, it'll say, "Hey, we're really excited to offer you this position. If you'd like to confirm, we'll lock in spots in our classroom for you with a deposit." And the deposit is then transferred to OSU. Once we have that, we'll send out the I-20. And then once again, if a student is denied a visa for some reason, we would immediately refund that deposit if unless they're going to try for their visa interview again.
So I want to add here for especially for deposit things. This is very new for Nepal. India is getting better now, and then Vietnam is always everybody want deposit. For Nepal and Nigeria, I think the visa like acceptance rate or like a denial rate is sometimes higher. But when a student pay the tuition deposit, they are very serious about the university. They feel like this is my university now when they start paying. That's the first things students start for researching. Another thing is there's more chance getting a visa because the student is very serious on the university. That's why the student is already paid for education. So that's why. So if there is any, I know it's a new things always very struggle on implementing in the market, but I highly suggest my advisors like if you put the student's deposit, it's 100% refundables. Like couple of like a $30-40 like administrative cost that's doesn't count, but other 100% refundable. So if you tell your students like to make a deposit, that's the best way getting a visa.
I absolutely agree, and I've ran into this because I know it is a new thing in Nepal, and so in Nepal our deposit amount is 800, and it's showing the students really serious, but it's also showing that the university is really serious because when we get that deposit, like I said, we're actually making sure that we have spots in class for you. That's so important because these other universities that don't have a deposit, they never know how many students are actually going to show up. So they're not planning their classes around the known population, meaning when you arrive, they might be like, "Oh, great, you're here, but we don't have any classes for you this term, so we'll put you in something else." At OSU, when you make that deposit, we say, "Okay, we know you're coming. We're making sure that we're going to start engaging with you, getting you registered, getting you into those courses that you're going to need to graduate on time." So we take it very seriously as well when a student pays a deposit. There's a pathway to becoming a permanent resident. So of course, no university can guarantee that. But what I can say is that when a student graduates and they get OPT, especially if they're a STEM graduate and they're going to get those 3 years, if a company has invested in you for 3 years, that's a ton of training and it's a ton of financial investment. And so they're going to want to keep you. And so it's not guaranteed, but I think the best way to becoming a resident would be to start down that path, graduate, get your 3 years of OPT, start working for a company that's going to sponsor you for that H-1B. Because if they've already invested in you, it's likely that they will take that chance and try to apply. Even then, it's not guaranteed. As you know, H-1B is a lottery, even when companies are willing to sponsor, but that is the best path to get there.
I think we're almost 1 hour. Thank you so much joining today webinar. So every Wednesday we have a webinar session. Like I think next week We are going to have another St. Louis University, another big research university. Thank you so much for your time. And then Casey, thank you so much for your